Welcome to the Happy Bones, Happy Life podcast. I'm Margie Bissinger, a physical therapist and integrative health coach, and I am your host and guide on our journey to discover the keys to stronger bones, more happiness, and the secrets to live your best life ever. From nutrition to stress, from exercise to happiness, you will gain revolutionary insights from our leading experts. It is time for you to discover the health and happiness you deserve. Hey, Margie here. Are you ready to discover the path to live the life of your dreams? Well, you're in for a real treat because on today's episode, our special guest is Matt Gersper. And Matt is an author, motivational speaker, and entrepreneur. He's the founder of Happy Living, a health and wellness media and book publishing company. And he's the author of The Belief Roadmap and Turning Inspiration into Action. And Matt believes that a better self is always possible, today and every day. And he has dedicated the rest of his professional life to developing and sharing best practices for health and happiness. My favorite part of this interview is when Matt really teaches us how to turn inspiration into action. He has a 3-step process that he goes over, and it's really powerful. So stay tuned. Welcome, Matt. I am so excited to be speaking with you today. It's so funny to everyone who's listening how we met. It was last summer. We were at this Mindshare Summit, and there was a little where we just had to find someone in the room that we didn't know and speak to them. And we spoke to each other. But then at the end, just for a couple minutes, we exchanged cards. And both of us started laughing because you're happy and my happy, your happy living and my happy bones, happy life were the exact same font. They were identical. And it was just, yeah. I don't believe there's any coincidences in life, but it was just really funny. And so we were both on the same page with what we believe, and you're so inspiring. I'm just really, really excited to have you speak with this community today. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here. And it was really a funny instance because we really worked hard to find that font, and I haven't seen it anywhere else. And not only was it the same font, but both our companies start with the exact same word, happy.
I know, it was so funny because the same thing with the font. It's not your typical font. It's not something you can just go on the computer and, I'll take Times New Roman or whatever. It was a font that sort of, to me, it was happy. And so that's how I picked it. So I love that.
And here we are now.
Here we are. So yeah. I love your topic. I love happy living. So why don't we get started on what is happy living, and why don't you share your story also in that, because it's really incredible how you got to be doing happy living. And so why don't you tell us what your definition of happy living is, and also in that go through your story so everybody can understand why you're so passionate about the things we're going to talk about today.
Sure. So my story, a quick version of my story, is I was a little tiny kid in Northern California that for some reason wanted to play pro football so much I couldn't hardly stand it. And when I went to high school, I was 5'2" and 100 pounds. And that didn't exactly fit with becoming a professional football player. But through a lot of hard work and really, really discipline for a young person, I was able to work my way up through high school football and to college football. And then I had 3 shots at the pros. I went up to Canada with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and I went to the NFL with the world champion Los Angeles Raiders. And then I got cut both cases. About a year and a half later, so the whole process took about a year and a half of trying to go pro. I went down to the Orlando Renegades in the USFL Football League, and I got cut in like a day. So finally, after all that, I said, okay, I guess the gods have spoken, and this dream has come to an end. So I made that decision on the flight home. Incidentally, just so you can understand how badly I wanted to play pro football. Before I went to Orlando, my wife had become pregnant. And so the baby was born in March. I left at the end of January, and I said, I'll see you in June.
Oh, no.
Psycho. And that's what I wanted. And that was just how badly I wanted it. After that, I decided, well, and after that was the only time in my life, Margie, that I think I felt what depression was like.
Oh.
I think for a couple of months, I was really kind of not right and couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. Then the baby was born, Kayleen, and then I knew instantly, well, dude, you got to be a father. You've got this life to take care of, and you've got to get to work. And my getting to work was I wanted to become a businessman. I didn't know what that meant, but then that was kind of that was my first big transition from football, transforming myself from a little kid into a real football player. That was my first big transformation in life. The second was going from sports to the business world and to being a family man. And so that took me about another 10, 15, 20 years that I worked my way up through different companies, and I learned a whole lot of different aspects of running a business as an employee. And in 2004, I had the chance to buy a company. And the way I got that chance was I got fired from the company I was working for because I had a real strong disagreement with the executive management, the CEO, about the direction the company was going. And I pushed and I pushed and I pushed until my colleagues, we were all like vice president levels, and they said, "Look, dude, you're gonna get fired." And I said I didn't care because I already had in my mind that I was going to start my own business to compete against them and do it the way I wanted to do it. So anyways, I got fired and I started that business in January of 2004. And by the time the summer came around, and just before I say I got fired, I really got laid off. So I had about 8 months worth of pay. And so just before my pay ran out, when the rubber was really going to start hitting the road, I had a strange connection from somebody who I used to work with in that old business, saying that her husband wanted to buy a customs business. And I thought, what's a customs business? I thought it was like financial brokerage, or I didn't know what it was. But it's international trade, customs, which is in the news a lot these days. And so again, to make this story short, I ended up buying that business, raising the money because I didn't have any money. So buying that business, I was able to retain, I was the largest shareholder in the business without any money putting in of my own. And anyways, we bought this company. We started a startup next to it that was similar. And I ran the startup, and her husband ran the company that we bought. 8 years later, we merged them together to one company. I moved from operations into the chairmanship, which is another learning thing. So I got to be a chairman of a company and learn how that process worked, which is really cool. And then we sold it 2 years later. And as I was moving from operations into the chairmanship, that's when I started thinking about what did I want to do next? Because the idea of a chairman is you're kind of just providing oversight. It's not a full-time job. And I certainly wasn't going to retire. So I started thinking, what did I want to do next? And at the bottom of the Grand Canyon on my second annual trip, I only made 2 annual ones, so I'm not sure I can call them annual. But at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, that second trip, I was working on the idea of, I was just letting my mind think about what's going to come next. What should I do next? And I was really inspired by a book called Halftime, written by Bob Buford, about what people do when they get to the halftime of their life. And it's a really, really interesting book. I would highly recommend it. It's a little religious. So if you get turned off by holy rolling religion, if that distracts the message from you, you might not like it. It doesn't distract the message from me. And so anyways, I was struck with the idea that what I need to do is 2 things. First of all, stop doing everything for myself, because frankly, the first half of my life, that's how I was. Everything I did was self-centered, was self-advancing. It might be very kind. I might give to charity, but it was self-advancing. And what I wanted to do is change that. I wanted to really change that and say, how can I be just a real giver and just honestly and truly give? So I'm a book author, and I want to be a best-selling author. But that's my old way of thinking. My new way of thinking should be, if I can just touch the life of one person with this book, that should be enough. What the hell do I need? Right? So I'm not there. I want to sell tons of books, and I'm pointing myself, I don't want to say sell books. I want to find lots of readers. But the reason shouldn't be for me. It should be because I'm helping change lives. So that's something I'm working on. And so anyways, out of that, this internal discussion came the idea of happy living, of improving the health and well-being of the world, one person at a time is kind of what our mission is. And we structured the company to get to the answer of what is happy living. We structured the company in a way that you're not supposed to do if you're an entrepreneur. You're the perfect entrepreneur. I'm a terrible one. You have a niche of bone health. That's a nice, tight niche. People can understand it when they say, Margie, what do you do? I'm a specialist in bone health. That makes sense. Well, I'm a specialist in happiness. And I want to improve the health and well-being of the world, one person at a time. So that's not much of a niche. So
pretty wonderful, though. I have to say, it's pretty wonderful, because especially at these times, we need happiness. Believe me.
And so what we try to do is we try to bring our niche in to a triangle of topics that we could research about, that we could write about, that we could talk about, that became our podcast and our books are about. And we call it the 7 Foundations of Health. And it's, if you think of a triangle with 4 blocks in the bottom, 2 blocks in the middle, and then 1 block on top, the 4 blocks in the bottom are the 4 fitnesses. And the idea around the 4 fitnesses is to, as a human being, I need to be powerful enough, I need to have enough capacity to take care of myself and my family. And then, if I want to be a giver, I have to have more. So I have to build capacity, excess capacity in my life. And so the way I do that is with physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness, and financial fitness. And when we threw in the finance, it really kind of changed our company from a lot of the health and wellness businesses. We're a little bit different. And finance is important. You can't give what you don't have. You can't give emotionally if you're an emotional wreck, and you can't give financially if you're a financial wreck. It just doesn't work. So we don't say that you have to follow those 4 fitnesses, but what I would say to you is you have to do what you need to do to build extra capacity in your life. And the 4 fitnesses are probably a good starting spot if you don't have your own. And then the next 2 blocks are love and adventure. And what I've learned over the 4 years of doing this, what I've learned the meaning of love and adventure is, or the purpose of love and adventure in our context, is discovering what is that thing inside you that is your purpose for being here. So when you're doing things you love, with people you love, in places you love, when you're going on adventures, going on cruises, walking down canyons, doing whatever reading books, you can adventure, with books. When you get out of your life and you go to adventure into some other life, that's where you find inspiration. That's where you find, holy smokes, I want to take people on jungle safaris. That's what my purpose is. And it's because I love this and I love that, and you discover it. And sometimes you discover it late in life, sometimes you discover it early. But so we write about love and adventure and really discovering what is your purpose for being here. And then once you find that purpose and you start to build your life around it, then you reach the top block, which we call significance. And we define significance as doing work that you love, which is great, because if you're doing work that you love, first of all, you'll do it for the rest of your life, because it's not work, it's fun, it's work you love, right? So you're excited, you can't wait to get to work. And the second attribute is it provides value to others. And when you can marry those 2 things, it's just beautiful, it's the magic of life. And so what we try to do is organize everything that we do at Happy Living, whether it's publishing books, because we're now a book publishing company as well, inviting people like like you on our podcast, writing blog posts, whatever we're involved in, the conferences that we go to learn and to expand, everything has to fit within those 7 foundations of health. And that's kind of what our niche is. And then just the last thing, because you mentioned it, we're really transitioning, I think in 2019, we're going to move away from our mission to improve the health and well-being of the world, one person at a time, to improving the happy of the world, one person at a time. And I think we're going to restructure our 7 foundations of health to be the 7 foundations of happiness. And so we're really going to focus, and this is the reason why I was thinking about this. B.B. King recently passed, and the great jazz musician. And he lived into his 90s. He was overweight. I doubt if he followed any of our, fitness. I'm sure he didn't follow my fitness regimen. I'm sure he didn't follow Jack LaLanne's fitness regimen. But he was happy. He was happy. He was doing work that he loved, and he was adding value to others. And I think look at Elon Musk. I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk, but he's brilliant, and he's building these businesses, and he's not in good shape. He's in terrible shape. He's a train wreck health-wise. But does that mean that he's not pursuing the life he's here to be pursuing? So I'm pulling a little bit down from health and wellness and saying, maybe you don't have to eat properly. Maybe you don't have to be physically fit, and certainly not a physical specimen, but you do have to build capacity. B.B. King had all the capacity he needed, and he didn't follow the prescription of being healthy. So I think we're going to do a little twist at happy living and really orient it towards happiness and not what I think happiness is. And then therefore you should do that, but for you to discover your true happiness, the reason that you're put on this earth.
I have to tell you, Matt, that was just said so beautifully. And I just agree completely, because working in the field for over 30 years as a health coach, as a physical therapist, I've been working with people, and I see the physical manifestations of all sorts of illnesses and way more than just bones. And there's such an important piece when people are not living their passion, when they're not living their purpose, and they're just sort of living and they're not happy. Things just fall apart. This other piece I found is I really think the most important. It's important to address nutrition, exercise is important, but once you address this other piece of happiness and feeling that you have a purpose and you're also contributing to the world, that it's bigger than you are, it's amazing the transformations that occur. And even with bone health, so let's just talk about bone health for a second. They found that there's a relationship between bone density and being fulfilled in your life, that people who are more fulfilled have higher bone densities. So there's physical consequences of all of the happiness and all of the good chemicals going through your body. So this is so important, because so often people come to me and they're like, I want to do the right exercise. I want to make sure I'm on the right food. But if they don't have this other piece, it's still important, but this other piece to me is just essential, and it's really encompasses so much. So I love the fact that how you do this, and I love the fact about capacity, because you're right. So often everybody gives to everybody else, but if you're not filled up, there's nothing to give to others. And you said that so nice with capacity. So that's great. I'm really excited for what you're doing and what you've already done. Why don't we talk about another term that I love that you talk about is Kaizen, and it's a Japanese term. And why don't you explain what that is? Because it fits so much into your philosophy, and I think it could be something that's really helpful for our listeners.
Yeah, Kaizen is a Japanese term that basically means small incremental improvements add up over time to yield big results. And I discovered this word decades ago. I was in a business 2 or 3 before the one I told you about that we sold. I was in my 20s. I think I was on the road selling stuff. And anyways, I was down at a meeting getting ready to go in with the folks that I was supposed to meet at this company. And I was just hanging out in the lobby reading a magazine. And the story was about how the Japanese car companies were kicking Detroit's ass back in the 70s and 80s. America was trying to figure out what was going on, and that's when Six Sigma came about, and that's where what Japan was, the Japanese car companies were doing was this practice of Kaizen, and just small little incremental improvements to this process and to that process, and keep looking for one small little thing you can do. And I read that and I thought, that's a great way to live, right? There's always something. I mean, I believe with every single cell in my body that there's something I can be doing better tomorrow than I can do today. And that happens to be in my 20s and my 40s and my 60s and my 80s. There's always something I can do better tomorrow than I'm doing today. So I'm looking for those small incremental improvements. For instance, in health and wellness. A couple of years ago, I saw a podcast or something that said you should eat sauerkraut because sauerkraut's really good for your gut biome. And your gut biome, we're now learning, affects your brain. Maybe it's even as important as your brain. And so I thought, okay, I hate sauerkraut. I remember hating sauerkraut, but I don't care now if I like the taste of it or not. So I bought some organic sauerkraut. I tasted it. It's actually pretty good. And so I have sauerkraut now every day with my lunch if I'm home. And I don't freak out about it that if I'm on a road trip that I don't have my sauerkraut, that's fine. But I've added sauerkraut to my life, and I made it permanent. And that's one of the big things about life improvement that a lot of people miss. They add something and then they give it back. They lose 10 pounds and then they give it back. They get physically fit, they start running, and then they give it back. They stop running and they lose their fitness. So what I've learned along with Kaizen, it's like Kaizen and hold. Kaizen and hold. Kaizen and hold. One little change, keep it. Keep all your improvements. And that creates this upward spiral of improvement, which really affects your spirit too. It's a very cool way to live. And
Absolutely.
It's not really hard. It's not overwhelming. You don't have to figure everything out. Figure one thing out and keep it.
You know, I just so love that. First of all, I do the exact same thing. It's probably been, 8 years now that I've been having sauerkraut, but you have to buy the live sauerkraut. Just listeners, right. It's not just the jar, that you put on your hot dog. This is in the refrigerated section. You buy the live cultured sauerkraut, and it's incredible. There's so much good bacteria that it's amazing. So I do the same thing. Whenever I'm home, every day for lunch, I also add some sauerkraut. And they have all sorts of flavors you can get. It's really quite good. But your concept, what you just presented, is so important because people get overwhelmed easily, and myself included. Oh my goodness, I have to do this exercise. I have to do this. I have to do that. Life can be really overwhelming. And when you're in overwhelm, nothing gets accomplished. And you're certainly not happiness. It's not where it's not the happiness zone at all. So I love your concept of one thing that you can do and then keep it. That's just really great information. And not to worry about the 30 million others. Do one, be happy about it, and keep it. So thank you for that. I love that. Was great.
And may I add one thing that I learned as well? And you mentioned it with being overwhelmed. I've been physically fit basically my whole life, and I exercise basically every day, and I have forever, and it's just something I do. But what I've learned is if my exercise regimen gets interrupted, in my old days, I would get physically upset by it. So, maybe something happens, like I have to take a child to the emergency room because she fell off a skateboard and she has to go see a doctor, and I happen to be her father. That would really bother me. And so I have to miss my exercise. And what I've learned is the stress that I put myself under for being upset about missing my exercise creates the same cascade of bad stuff in my body that not exercising does. And so this is another part of what I'm trying to learn. You have to just relax about things. Try to do your best, but relax about it, because being upset, being worried, emotional stuff causes just the same badness inside our bodies as eating toxins. It's all toxic, and it all creates the same response inside the body. So yes, try to improve, but don't get all freaked out if you can't do something on a particular day.
I love that. And it's so true because, a lot of us are on the edge and really worry, and worry creates, in terms of what happens with the body, it's the fight or flight. When the body can't differentiate if it's real stress, are you running from a tiger, or is it perceived stress? Oh my goodness, I'm worried about that. It creates the same effects. And it creates, cortisol's release and the stress hormone and so many negative effects. It reduces the bone building cells. It increases blood pressure. It increases blood sugar. It's just negative cascade. And you're right. But I found when people do a lot of the practices that I know you talk about, and whatever practices it is, the relaxation, you tend to then be on a more even keel. You just can live life. And when something comes, it doesn't knock you over. You can ride the waves. So that's just really, really good information. But even though you mentioned, you do have some good elements in your fitness foundations. I like some of your concepts when it comes to physical health, for lifelong exercise. Because a lot of people start the exercise and then they stop. Yeah. And do you mind discussing some of those? Because I think they're very good. And I think that as a physical therapist, I'm a big believer in exercise that you like, not punishing exercise. Yeah. But why don't you fill us in on some of your principles with the exercise?
Sure. The first thing I had to learn is exercise should be lifestyle appropriate. So a friend of mine who happens to be the first CrossFit champion of the world, his name is James Fitzgerald. He writes for us at Happy Living. And I got to know him because I was at a conference and he was speaking. I didn't know who he was, but the title was, "You Are Not an Athlete." And my ego popped in and said, well, I'm sure as hell I'm an athlete. I played football and all this. So he caught my attention, and I went in and I listened to his talk. And his message is that especially in our current culture of exercise, of hardcore exercise, of extreme exercise, that we have civilians, regular people that are leading regular lives, not trying to be a CrossFit champion of the world, that are exercising way too hard. So the first thing is your exercise should be lifestyle fitting, right? If you want to be an executive, or you want to be an entrepreneur, or like in my case, I want to be carrying my wife's luggage when I'm 80 and still hiking in the woods. And James actually said, if you want to be hiking in the woods when you're 80, you shouldn't be doing box jumps. I thought, that's interesting. So that informs my fitness program now, and because I used to be a really hardcore fitness junkie. I mean, I used to really, really, really push myself hard, and I'm not doing that anymore. I've really pulled back. So my philosophy is do what you enjoy. So you have to move. It's really important that you're moving so your heart's getting healthy, and it's really important that you're lifting so your bones are getting healthy. And the lifting and the strength is more important for your bones than for your looks and your muscles. I think that's right, Margie.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Absolutely.
So do what you love. There's things you can find that you love to do. It's usually good if you mix them up. I'm not very good at mixing it up, trying different things all the time, but it's good if you mix it up. Do your exercise regularly, right? Don't give it back. My philosophy of Kaizen, once you get a little bit of fitness, what I learned in my younger days is I was a big weightlifter. And if for every week that you work out, you lose 3 weeks when you take a week off, right? So if I've trained for 6 months and then I take a month off, I'm going to be way back in the middle of where I started. And when I learned that, or at least when I believed that changed everything. I'm not going to give it back. It's too hard to improve yourself to give it back. So do what you enjoy, do it regularly, don't give it back. And this is probably the most important one, especially if you're listening to these words and you're not in good physical shape. Go slow. It took you your entire life to get as out of shape as you currently are. So take your time getting back, because especially as you get into your late 30s, but certainly 40s and 50s, if you get injured, you're toast. It takes me a lot longer to heal an injury now that I'm 57 than when I was 27. So go slow, go easy, but just don't stop going. And over time, you'll gain more and more fitness. And you do it in a way, I'm so much more energized after my exercise now because I'm not killing myself. And I look the same. So less is more.
I love that. More is not better. You do
Right.
want to keep challenging yourself, but in a way, I think you brought up so many good points, because I see people that are really exercising because they know they have to, and that shouldn't be. You can find exercise that you love, that it's fun, that you feel great afterwards, and you don't want to stop. It's enjoyable for you. So I think that's really important. I think every single point you said was extremely important, and I see that every single day. But when people do stop, that's what happens. You do lose quickly. And when people try to do too much and they're injured, that sets them back months. It's
Right.
such a shame. They have such good intentions, and I'm going to go for this full force, and then they overdo it. And that can happen, unfortunately. Sometimes there's these very young people at the gym that are well-meaning, but they don't know your level, and people don't always say, oh, that hurts or whatever, and they end up getting injured, and they have to go to physical therapy, which is crazy. So I think your points are just something that people should listen to and can make your exercise fun, because I see couch potatoes all the time that when I see them, they know now they have to exercise because they have this diagnosis of osteoporosis. But it changes their life. They love it. They have more energy. They can do things with their family. They can lift their luggage that they never want to stop because their life has changed so dramatically. So I think when it's done in the right way, as you mentioned, it's fantastic. So thank you for giving us those steps.
You're welcome. I'll add just one more quick thing.
Sure.
Is when you, especially when you're starting, when you don't feel like exercising, first of all, you need to get yourself trained to the point that if you're going to exercise at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's not something you wake up and say, do I feel like it? You've already decided it. So just get up and do it.
Great.
So it's not a decision. So figure out what you want to do. But then if you really don't feel good, or you're having trouble, just get started. So maybe in your mind you say, okay, if I really feel bad, I'm not going to go through the whole exercise. Maybe I'm not going to walk the whole mile. Just go get started. Because what I find is when I get started, all of a sudden I start feeling better. And I almost never stop. I go ahead and do it. But so that's what I would say is, even if you're not feeling good, first of all, make it non-negotiable. And second, just go try and do it half-assed, right?
Absolutely. That's my word too. Yeah. Matt, that's the word I use. It's non-negotiable. They're just things that I know if I'm going to live the life I want and to be happy and feel good and energized and to be 80 and hiking all over. That's the life I want too. So if I'm going to do that, exercise is non-negotiable. It's just like healthy eating is non-negotiable. Right. So I think that's a good word. When you make things non-negotiable, you don't have to think about it. It's just part of your day, and it just fits in. So that was a great word. Thanks for telling us about that. So now, since we could talk, there's so much more to talk about, but I do want you have some amazing steps. If you wanted to leave this audience with some incredible steps, maybe since we don't want to overwhelm them, maybe let's give them 3 steps that they can take, that they can feel amazing. And as you put it, they can also still fit into their pants.
3 physical fitness steps, or
whatever you want. If you wanted to leave this audience, I know you also talk about nutrition, but is there 3 steps that you would like to enlighten us with, so that you can 3 things that you'd like the audience to take away that maybe could have the biggest bang for their buck, or that really can have life-changing?
I'll do 2 minutes on this, and I wrote a whole book. I wrote a whole book on it. It's a book called Turning Inspiration into Action, and it's based on the idea that we all feel inspiration all the time. You see somebody, you see a show, and you have this idea hits you, and you say, I want to do that. And so that's an inspiration that hit you. And then very often, that inspiration doesn't survive the trip home if you were at a conference, or it doesn't survive the day if you're home. You get up the next morning and you forgot about it, and you're not doing it, you're not bringing it into your life. So I studied and wrote a book about basically my life hasn't been that way. When I've decided to do something, I've done it. And so I kind of explored why, and I discovered something that is really simple and really powerful, and I just call it the transformational process. And it's based on 3 questions that invoke 3 powers that give you the personal strength to overcome what I call the force of gravity that holds your life in place. So the reason when you get inspired one day and you don't put it into action in your life the next day is because the inspiration is not as powerful as the gravity. And you can think of gravity as all kinds of things. Worry, we've talked about. Sickness prevents you from doing things. Being overwhelmed. Expectations that you have of yourself or from others. Anything that when you say, I want to do this, and then your little brain starts saying, you can't because that's gravity. So the good news is we don't have to worry about the gravity. We just need to become more powerful. So the questions are this: what inspires you? Why is it important to you? And how will you bring it into your life? And when you ask the first question, what inspires you? Just think of yourself as you're walking around living your life, being receptive to, like, the law of attraction. What are you attracted to? Those are things, that's a message coming to you. Well, I was attracted to writing a book, and I'm definitely attracted to happy living. And so pay attention. Maybe you're attracted to B.B. King, and maybe you really are secretly a jazz musician. So don't judge your inspirations. Just listen to them, feel them. What inspires you? Then when you ask the next question, why is it important to you? That's when you start invoking the powers. So maybe I've got 5, 10, 15 things on my list of inspirations, and I start to say, why is it important to me to be a jazz musician? It's not for me. I love it. I'm inspired by it, but it's not for me. Why is it important that I write a book? Well, for A, B, and C, and D. It's really important that I can get my message out. I want to help people. It fits a financial model that I love, creating something once and using it over and over and over again. So it fits for a lot of reasons. So as I say, I'm not going to be a jazz musician, but I am going to become an author. I've invoked the power of priority. Okay. The second question also invokes the second power. When I anchor the thing that I want to do, the thing that inspires me to my heart, it's the mama bear power. I will do anything for this thing because it's really important to me, and that invokes the power of the heart. And then when I actually say, okay, how am I going to bring this thing into my life? Which is hard to do, because I imagine if you're listening to this podcast, you're interested in self-improvement, and you're probably a very busy person. So if you want to do this new big thing, I suggest that you go back to the second question and ask it of all the stuff you're currently doing and say, why is all that stuff important to you? And I would wager that a lot of it no longer is. It might have had a place at one time in your life, but there's a lot of stuff. If you're not really jacked up with happiness right now, you're doing some things that aren't serving you. And so identify those and get rid of them if you can. And maybe you get rid of them over time, because some of them might be responsibilities, but make space for your change. That's the important message there. And then once you've made space and you actually start doing the work of your change, you start becoming the person that you want to be, that you're inspired to be, or doing the thing that you're inspired to do. That invokes the power of the universe. That invokes the power that allowed you and me to meet. Right? And that is where serendipity comes into your life, and it helps you along, and it takes you to this place that you could have never imagined going. You can't think it and plan it. It just happens. But it happens by engaging in the work that you love in your life. So that would be my takeaway is pay attention to what inspires you. Ask yourself, get reflective. Why is it important to you? Why is one thing not important to you? If you're doing stuff that's not important in your life, or you're hanging out with people that don't make you feel good, that's the single most fastest way, I didn't say it grammatically very well, that you can improve your life, is stop hanging out with people that make you feel bad. It instantly improves how you feel. And you're in charge. You're allowed to be happy. In fact, I think that's why we're supposed to be. That's why we're here, I think. And so engage. When you're engaging, that takes you on this wonderful adventure. At least it's worked that way for me.
Oh, Matt, that just was so beautifully said. Speaks to my heart, because I see that when people do follow the types of things that you're talking about, everything changes. And it's not something that, oh, well, that's not for me. It's for everybody. It's for everybody. So I really suggest following those guidelines because they're incredibly powerful. I can't even say how important they are and how I've seen such life-changing conditions. People who were really sick really got their life on purpose and did those things, and all of a sudden now they're healthy and happy, and it's great. So I can't thank you enough for enlightening us with really all your knowledge and what you've been through and what you've put together. You put it together in such a beautiful way. So thank you. Can you tell us, I know you have some gifts for everybody listening, some free gifts that can help them on their path to happiness, and you call it your roadmap. So why don't you tell us how they can get everything and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our website's happyliving.com, 3 W's and happyliving.com. And on the website, we've got our homepage, but we've got a page for our blog, our podcast, our books. So we're about to publish our 7th book. It'll be out in the next week or so. So those are all there. They're all available on Amazon, but they're also available through our website. And some of the talks that I've done, that's all there on the website. And there's a button to join our community. We generally send out, once or twice a month, we'll reach out to you with, a list of things that we think is cool and that's going on in our world that have to do with happiness. But also, when you join, you get a copy of my first book. It's called The Belief Roadmap. It's my personal philosophies on our 7 foundations of health. That includes my philosophy of physical fitness and philosophy of nutritional fitness, but also my philosophy of why we're here, my philosophy of happy living. So it's kind of a fun book around the idea of building your own philosophies in life. So not my philosophies for you, but it's organized in a way that you can see what I've done, and you can use those as templates or as ideas for you, and then it encourages you to build your own. Because this is the thing, if you don't build the roadmap that you want for your future, you're going to be using somebody else's roadmap. So that's the real message of this book. It's an exercise to explore who you are and what you want, so you can start to build your life to move in that direction.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. And I'm just really, one more thing we have to tell everyone about that you just told me about today. Why don't you tell them about your retreat house? This is really exciting news.
Oh boy, gives me goosebumps. So one of the things I've been working on, one of the things that hasn't worked well for me at Happy Living is I feel like I'm sitting here in my home office in the wintertime, and on my porch in the summertime. That's my summer office, which is awesome. Doing happy living stuff, which is awesome. Spewing, love and happiness out into the world, which is awesome. But I'm not getting a lot of engagement. And so we started going to some conferences. I had a great time at Mindshare because of the engagement with people like you. And we love this conference called Paleo Effects in Austin. Great community, great tribe of people, as they say these days. The World Domination Society is a great event that goes on in Portland. And in Portland, it's a unique conference. They allow the attendees to host their own workshops and meetups. So we started doing that. So it's like a little mini conference inside a big conference, and it was happy living, engaging with other people. And this last time that we went, we decided to get out of a hotel and go to an Airbnb in a high rise. And we found out we couldn't have parties there. Well, of course, the whole point was to have 25 people come over for parties. And so we ended up renting a yacht, a 25-foot yacht, and that was our home base. It was so fun.
Oh my goodness.
And so from that experience, I thought, you know what I want to do is I want to buy a house that's specifically for happy living retreats and events. And I live in a beautiful place in North Carolina on Lake Norman. It's a lake that's 525 miles of shoreline. It's beautiful. I love to show this part of the world to people. So we are closing on our Happy Living Lake House tomorrow. We take possession tomorrow. I've got my team coming in, and we're going to be planning our 2019 calendar and what we want to do. But this is what I didn't tell you, Margie, that rather than have, for happy living events, rather than have kind of, hey, come in and we're going to teach you how to turn inspiration into action and we're going to do a retreat. What we decided to do is we're going to have kind of like a vacation. And we're going to have a guest star of our vacation. So maybe we would have, you might be a guest star, and you might be talking about beat the belly fat, bloating, bone loss, and the blues at the lake.
I'm coming.
So,
okay, sign me up, Matt.
So
I'm ready.
You'd be our guest star. You're obviously, it would be people that are interested in bone health and that are following you and want to, maybe they're your fans or friends or whatever. And so we would have a guest star that's kind of our anchor. We've got a chef that's on our docket. We've got folks that make paleo treats or have been invited. We've got some artists that may be coming. It can be anybody who's interesting and that's involved in happy living. They may be a guest star, and then we will rent the rooms around them. And the biggest idea is the happy living team will be there as you'll be our guests. And we're going to treat you to a lake vacation, paddleboarding, going to dine on the lake, but all around this idea that we're here with this special guest star that we want to get to know better. And then we're going to do what you do on vacation, talk about life, talk about what's important, connect with people. And so that's our idea.
Oh, sounds fantastic. Sign me up. I love this idea. Wow, that's great.
In addition, it's going to be designed for retreats. So if practitioners, want to rent it out and run their own retreats, we're on that too. That's going to be great. And then in addition to that, it's just going to be a vacation rental. So anybody who's listening to this can rent it for any reason. It's going to sleep about 9 people in separate rooms. And it's just the house. It was designed by an architect in 2009. It is just gorgeous.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. And anyone interested can get in touch with you. This is great news. I'm taking you up on this, Matt. I'm really excited. Sounds fantastic. So
awesome.
But anyway, thank you so much. We could go on and on. There's so much happiness to share and so many principles, but you've really given us just some great concepts that we can take home, put to use right away, and they'll make a big difference in our lives. That's what I love. And that's what I love about the work that you do. And you are helping people every day, and you're changing the world. And it's so beautiful to see. And I'm so glad that we met and have the same logo. Not the logo, but the font. So
we're font friends.
We are, and we're just passing happiness.
Font friends forever.
It is funny because it's exactly the same. If you see my Happy Bones, Happy Life, and Matt's Happy Living, it's exactly the same happy. So we'll just keep spreading this happiness, right, Matt? Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I just loved speaking with you and having you share all your great wisdom. So thank you, and good luck with this house. Sounds so exciting.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks. I hope you're as inspired as I am to start taking action to make your dreams a reality. All of the free gifts and link to Matt's website are in the show notes. So goodbye for now, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Happy Bones, Happy Life podcast. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe on your favorite listening app so that you don't miss any amazing insights on upcoming episodes. And until next time, continue to live your best life ever. See you soon.